What is going on, everyone? Let's take a look at one of the most depressing parts of life in the United States and really the world: hate groups and racism. This is nothing new. People have been hating each other since we lived in caves. Eliminating hate has always been the goal of about 80% of us human beings. It's just that 20% that keep it going. That is a nice thought though, eliminating hate. Sadly, it's an unrealistic dream. All we can do is try and educate people and hope for better times. The reason I'm making this video is I get requests all the time from people wanting to know where they might not be welcome. That is one of the saddest questions I get. Most of the time that question comes from foreign-born residents or people looking to move to the United States for school or work. Normally they have a couple job offers in different states, or they're looking at a couple different schools to attend, and they just want to know where they're more likely to be welcome. I wasn't sure how to gauge this one. I'd thought about doing this list for a long time. What's the metric on racism? Do you go by how many crimes are reported? Most hate crimes aren't reported. While I was looking at reported hate crimes, I realized that it varies seriously every single year. I mean, some states be on it for 3 years in a row and then they disappear for 2 years. Those numbers are just all over the map and they vary drastically from year to year. But while I was researching this, I found that the FBI tracks hate groups across the country. Most law enforcement consider these hate groups as the second largest threat to the stability of the United States, right behind a Nickelback North American tour. So today we're going to rank the states by how many hate groups they have per capita. This may not be the best way to approach this subject, but it's the one I'm going with. All right, let's take a look. Number 10, Nevada. Hate groups and hate crimes tend to happen in more rural areas, out of the big cities. Not saying the big cities don't have them, I'm just saying they tend to be out in the woods a little bit. Not like Nevada has a lot of woods, but Nevada has a lot of open space and a lot of small towns where things like this are kind of a thing. Like I've said in other videos, it's kind of common knowledge that Las Vegas really only has a few metro areas. The Las Vegas metro area is their biggest, and it's where most of the people live. You also have Reno, it's a little bit smaller, but that metro area has some people, and maybe Laughlin. After that, it's mostly small towns. There's a lot of people in Nevada that don't want foreigners moving there. They especially don't want aliens. And when I say aliens, I'm talking about the ones that come from outer space. They still can't get over they got some aliens living out at Area 51. That's always on tap for some conversation in Nevada. In 2020, the FBI reported that Nevada had 12 actual organized hate groups, giving them 3.82 per every million residents. The percentage of the population in Nevada that is foreign-born is 19.8%. Number 9, Idaho. If you've never been to Idaho, you might not know that this place is actually very much white. Only about 5.8% of their population is foreign-born. Not a very diverse state, but there is some positive news about their hate groups. Back in 2011, they had 12 different hate groups, organized hate groups that were on the FBI's radar. In 2020, they only had 7, giving them 3.83 for every million residents. Progress. Now, other organizations said that Idaho back in 2011 had at least 18 hate groups. But we're going to stick with the FBI stats because that seems to be a little more reliable. Everyone else is all over the board. Number 8, South Carolina. This one shouldn't surprise anyone. South Carolina and really most southern states have a long history of hate groups and racism and everything else like that. The good news, all the southern states have made great strides in the last decade when it comes to things like this. States with a history of racism and hate groups also have a history of severe poverty. South Carolina fits that mold perfectly. Right now, South Carolina has the 10th highest poverty rate in the nation, with 13.8% of their population living below the poverty line. And that's a pretty good number if you compare it to South Carolina's history. In 2020, South Carolina had a total of 20 hate groups, giving them 3.83 per million residents. Foreign-born population is 5.6%. Number 7, Virginia. There has been a lot of racial tension in Virginia for a very long time. It kind of started picking up steam back around 2017, and now Virginia always seems to be in the news when it comes to some sort of racial issue. Just this week, you got a bunch of nonsense going on in Virginia Beach. which from my understanding from the video I researched the other day on the rudest states, a lot of stuff like this goes on in Virginia Beach. In 2020, the FBI estimated that they have 33 hate groups in Virginia, giving them 3.84 per every million residents. Their foreign-born population is 12.7%. That gives them the 15th highest in the United States. Number 6, Alabama. Hey, surprise, surprise, Alabama made a list like this. No, honestly, is anyone surprised that Alabama's on this list? In case you're not from the United States, Alabama is in what we consider the Deep South, along with South Carolina. And again, this state has a long history of racism. Alabama has made great strides in recent years. Back in 2011, they had 26 hate groups. Right now, they have 20 hate groups recognized by the FBI, giving them 4.06 for every million residents. Only 3.6% of Alabama's population is foreign-born. Number 5, New Hampshire. I gotta tell you, I was a little shocked about this one. Stereotypically, you gotta figure a state's gotta be like in the South to be this high on the list, but there's a couple on here that are kind of shocking. I shouldn't say shocking, surprising. This one breaks one of the rules that racism and hate groups usually follow poverty lines. They don't have a terrible amount of poverty in this state. Only about 7% of New Hampshire lives in poverty, which is well below the national average of 10.8%. New Hampshire is a very white state with 89.7% of the population being white or Caucasian, whatever you want to say. Their foreign-born population is 6.4%. And they have 6 hate groups recognized by the FBI, giving them 4.39 for every million residents. Number 4, Arkansas. And back to the South we go with our old friend Arkansas. They are always on a list when it comes to suckage. If nothing else, Arkansas is consistent. Whenever we do a negative video about states, Arkansas is almost guaranteed to be on that list. And if we do one about cities, chances are Arkansas has a couple entries on that one too. In 2010, Arkansas had 28 different recognized hate groups. They've cut that in half, so they're doing better. Right now, Arkansas has 14 hate groups, giving them 4.62 for every million residents, and their population, 5.1%, is foreign-born. Number 3, Nebraska. Nebraska is another state that's got a long history of racial issues. I mean, it just wasn't African Americans back in the day, even though that was a big part of their issues, especially in Omaha. Omaha had a thing where they were trying to chase out the Greeks. At another time, they were trying to chase out all the Irish. And another time, they didn't want any Germans living there. And then, of course, there's the incident of Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson was an African-American boxer who won a major upset at a national match in Reno, Nevada. Upon hearing the news, fights broke out all over Omaha between blacks and whites. When it was all done, the white residents had put several black residents in the hospital and killed one. Currently, Nebraska has 9 hate groups recognized by the FBI, giving them 4.65 for every million residents, and their foreign-born population is only 7.4%. Number 2, Tennessee. This one doesn't surprise me at all. The cities have gotten better over the years. I mean, there's still a little bit of segregation going on between them, but you're not going to see as much hate and racism as you would, say, 10, 20 years ago. Their rural communities, in most cases, are a different story. This is another one where poverty does play into their issues. The poverty rate in Tennessee is almost 14% at 13.9%. That's the 9th highest in the United States. In 2010, they had 45 hate groups. As of 2020, the FBI has them at 34 hate groups, giving them 4.94 for every million residents. Only 5.5% of their population is foreign-born. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget we have another channel called On This Day and a website. There are links down below. Also, there's a link down there for Audible, which is Amazon. It's for anyone that travels. It's basically audiobooks. I've used it for years. It's great. There's a link if you want to check it out. They got a free trial going on. That's why I have a link down there for you. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Montana. Now, since we're going off the per capita thing, Montana lands at number 1. Hardly anyone lives in Montana, so this is kind of, I don't know. I wouldn't say not accurate, but it's a little off, I think. Montana is a great state with great people. They just don't really like too many foreigners or outsiders moving in. I don't think it's a foreign thing. I just don't think they like outsiders in most cases. They really like it when you show up as a tourist, leave your money, and then head on home. Montana only has 6 recognized hate groups, which is down from 8 in 2010, giving them 5.55 for every million residents. They have the 3rd lowest when it comes to foreign-born in the nation. Only 2.3% of their population was born outside the United States. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys liked it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, and be nice to each other.